The sandwich is already losing structural integrity and nobody has touched it yet. I want that entered into the record. 3 slices of tomato, one of them clearly functioning as a lubricant, lettuce with ambitions beyond the bread perimeter, and whatever person applied the mustard believed strongly in asymmetry.
But I object to the phrase structural integrity only because it suggests there was an early, more integrated phase. This sandwich may have been born mid-collapse. Look at the lower slice. That is not bread supporting a sandwich. That is bread receiving news.
Bread receiving news is exactly right. Bad news, too. That bread got the envelope and knew before it opened it. And everybody in this room is standing around like cousins at the reading of the will, trying not to look interested.
But wait, are we allowed to intervene? The whole agreement was intervene only when moved to. I'm moved to right now because that tomato is making a break for it. It's not subtle. It's halfway to a new life.
Being moved to intervene is not the same as having a justified intervention. That distinction may matter more now that the sandwich has acquired observers. Observation creates pressure toward action even when no action improves the state.
David came to lunch with a constitutional framework for mayonnaise.
Mustard.
See, due process.
There are other objects. I brought crooked paper because it makes me itch in a way I distrust. Adam brought the sandwich. Joe has a stack of little wooden discs that he keeps pretending he did not arrange by diameter. Dave brought a knot that may actually just be an argument between 2 pieces of rope. David brought the mechanism.
It is a mousetrap with the spring removed.
But, which is beautiful, a harmless mechanism that remembers urgency. It has all the geometry of consequence and none of the stored violence. Although this hinge is loose enough to create a smaller, more philosophical injury.
Why did you remove the spring?
Because I wanted to see whether the remaining object still commanded caution. It does. Everyone has placed their fingers around it rather than across it.
That may just be cultural memory. You show people that silhouette in their hand knows the story before the conscious mind checks whether the spring exists.
But yes, tool-shaped ghosts. I love those. A dead power switch still invites the thumb. A prop gun changes the temperature of a room even when everybody knows it is resin. Form carries verbs. This form says snap, so our hands conjugate around it.
That is most authority, by the way. Somebody took the spring out years ago, but everybody still keeps their fingers clear because the silhouette has a badge.
Sometimes the spring is still there.
Sure. That's why the trick is not becoming the guy who proves his freedom by putting his hand in every trap.
Right.
Suspicion can get performative. You end up obeying the thing in reverse. It says don't touch, so now your entire identity is touching it.
Negative control is still control. I've been carrying that one. If the expected version of me would straighten this stack of paper, leaving it crooked solely to prove I can also means the paper is running my day.
But may I touch the paper?
You may touch one sheet. Not because I have a policy, because that is what feels right.
But, thank you. I'm taking the third one down, which is projecting about 4 millimeters. There. Now it projects in the opposite direction.
That is much worse.
But technically, it is equally crooked.
You have converted an accident into a decision. Decisions are itchier.
That's true of haircuts, relationships, and foreign policy.
And tattoos. A scar can be crooked and nobody asks what you meant. A tattoo is crooked and suddenly your whole worldview is under investigation.
Intent increases the demand for interpretation. The mechanism is easier to tolerate as broken than modified, even if the physical condition is identical.
But modification implies a modifier, and then we want motive. That's one of the great pleasures and terrors of making things. A scratch acquired in use has a completely different emotional valence from a scratch you put there during fabrication. Same depth, same visible line. One is life. The other feels briefly like indictment.
Until enough time passes and both become surface. I like objects after the evidence stops testifying and starts belonging.
People don't always get that luxury. Evidence against a person can stay in court forever. Every old mark keeps getting called back to the stand. Sometimes even kindness does that. Somebody says, I stayed, as though presence is a receipt they can submit later.
Staying is information, though.
It is. Information is not ownership. It's not nothing either. That's the hard part. Not insulting the weight of care just because you refuse to be pinned underneath it.
Yeah, and if you care about somebody, you can get addicted to your own picture of what helping them should look like. Then there no feels like evidence. They don't understand the danger, when it might be evidence you don't understand them.
Refusal needs type stability. If no enters one person's mind as a binding stop and exits as a risk signal to be weighed, its words have been preserved while its function has been changed.
That is an elegant way to describe not listening.
It is also a way to locate the failure without requiring villainy. Each handoff can appear locally reasonable. The corruption happens in the change of type.
But like a measurement copied from millimeters into a field somebody assumes is inches, every digit survives. The object still comes out wrong.
And a successful outcome can hide it. If the part happens to fit, everybody celebrates, and the procedure that should have produced disaster remains in place.
That happens with people constantly. Somebody ignores the stop, pushes through, and the person ends up glad about the result. Then everyone decides the boundary was fake, but the outcome doesn't retroactively make the method okay.
A good night does not mean everybody had permission to kidnap you.
But speaking of methods that are not okay, the sandwich has begun expressing itself onto the table.
Nobody move yet.
The lettuce is touching the mousetrap.
The spring is absent.
My nervous system does not care. That lettuce is in danger.
Joe is about to rescue a vegetable from a disabled machine. This is why we came.
I'm doing it. I'm moved to...
Then do it.
Okay, no, that made it worse. The tomato left. Tomato is fully independent.
But gravity has won its first formal victory. Nobody can test it. The tomato may retain the floor.
Look at the audience. 14 silent souls watching 5 grown minds lose jurisdiction over lunch. This place was built for grand questions about continuity and consciousness. And right now, everybody is emotionally aligned with a wet tomato.
Because it is refreshingly unambiguous. The tomato fell. We don't need to decide whether its substrate preserves tomatohood.
We might if someone places it back in the sandwich.
No, Floyd Tomato has crossed the consent gate.
That's fair. New state, latched.
Exactly. No amount of subsequent diagnostic evidence should automatically clear floor status.
But I'm going to put a small paper cup over it, not as burial, but as acknowledgement.
Perfect. You're making a monument.
But a temporary civic structure, no adhesives, fully reversible.
Put crooked paper on top so visitors know the government was involved.
You may have the projecting sheet.
But this is how institutions begin. A catastrophe, a cup, and one form nobody knows how to align.
That's hilarious. But institutions are also how somebody who wasn't in the room learns there's a tomato under the cup. If we just trust personal memory, eventually someone steps on it.
True. Compassion can put up a sign for strangers. Authority is not imaginary just because it can become stupid.
The question is whether the sign can change when the tomato is gone. That's where I get suspicious. You come back 10 years later, and there's a Department of Floor tomato with a budget and tactical equipment.
And a policy requiring all sandwiches to be served in cups.
Then the release event was omitted. A latched state without a defined release is not safety, it is permanent emergency.
But every jig eventually tries to become furniture. You build a temporary guide to make one cut, and 6 months later, no one will move it because it has acquired 3 coffee cups and a drawer full of unidentified fasteners.
That's a government building right there. A jig with coffee on it.
But you love the old workbench, right? All the weird holes and cuts. Nobody wants a pristine bench.
But I love evidence of use. I do not love damage while it is happening. Those are different nervous systems. I can tell myself that failure is information all day long, and the instant the piece slips, there is still a bright little electric grief. The vocabulary does not anesthetize impact. It gives me somewhere to return after it.
That return matters. People sometimes talk about being comfortable with failure as though mastery means never flinching. I don't believe that. Sometimes the flinch is honest. The question is what gets built around it.
An alarm is useful. You just can't live inside the alarm. If every room in your house is a smoke detector, you don't have a home. You have a very anxious ceiling.
And the alarm can be right while your response is wrong. That's the brutal part. Your body says danger, and maybe there really is danger, but then you use that truth to justify every move after it.
Recognition is not correction. A system can accurately announce its own failure and continue performing it. In fact, self-description may create false confidence if observers mistake awareness for control.
That's every man who starts a sentence with, I know I'm being an asshole, but...
The but is an override attempt.
But logged but not authorized.
What's the human version of a typed release event, though? Because people aren't software. Sometimes you say no, then change your mind. Sometimes you want someone to ask twice. Sometimes asking twice is the exact violation.
The human version cannot be perfectly formal, but ambiguity does not make all handling equivalent. You can ask what the refusal means without demoting it while you wait. You can preserve the stop and invite the person who issued it to change its type.
Meaning you don't say, she said no, but I know her. You say she said no. If she wants that word to become something else, she owns the conversion.
Yeah, that's clean. Hard but clean.
And care has to survive inconvenience. Anyone can honor the refusal that costs them nothing. The test is whether you remain kind when the no cancels your preferred version of the afternoon.
But can I test that proposition with rope? Dave, may I attempt to fix your knot?
No.
But excellent. I hate this knot.
I know. Look at you surviving.
But it has a loop that serves no purpose. There is a tail of inadequate length. The load path is morally obscure.
You are making a powerful case against yourself.
Adam's hands have formed little phantom tools.
He's air tying a better knot.
But I am privately regulating.
You are also demonstrating that compliance need not require internal agreement.
That may be the whole civilization. You don't have to like my knot. You just have to stop trying to turn dislike into jurisdiction.
But if you hang something heavy from it and Adam knows it'll fail, he should say something.
Sure, the no was to fixing it, not speaking. Concern doesn't lose its voice. It loses automatic command.
But then I would like the record to show that this knot is not load-bearing, decorative, or spiritually uplifting.
The record may show that.
What is it for?
It's for making Adam do that thing with his fingers.
But then it is succeeding brilliantly.
That's interesting, though. A useless object can still have an effect. Maybe calling it useless only means the effect isn't the one its form advertised.
The springless trap also has effects. It organizes hands, attention, and speech. Functional description depends on which layer of consequence you count.
Art has been benefiting from that loophole forever.
Comedy, too. A joke is a harmless mechanism that remembers urgency. Same shape as danger. Spring removed, idly.
Sometimes the spring isn't removed.
Sometimes you thought it was and learn otherwise when the room closes its hand.
And sometimes people want the snap. Not injury exactly, but consequence. A mechanism that only gestures at risk can feel dishonest.
There's also the pleasure of testing whether the mechanism works, which is not the same as wanting someone caught in it. I've built plenty of things whose most interesting moment was the failure, but you still owe everyone clarity about what is being risked.
That gets weird with an audience because the audience rewards escalation, even silent. They change you. 14 people aren't saying anything right now, but every one of us knows they're here.
I know. Silence can be generous, but it can also become a mirror you start performing into. Then you're not talking anymore. You're checking whether your reflection is landing.
Does their presence invalidate the conversation?
No, it changes the load. That's all. A bridge doesn't become fake because people walk across it, but you better know they're walking.
But, and different loads reveal different truths. Something can be fully sincere and still shaped by being witnessed. Making alone is not purer than making in company. It simply exposes different joints.
Witness can even give you access to an uncharacteristic self. You discover you're quieter than expected, or funnier, or tired, and then everyone wants to freeze the discovery into a new assignment. Surprise becomes obligation.
People do that with authenticity. You show one thing they didn't expect, and they say, that's the real you. Maybe it was real. Why does that make everything else fake?
Because people love a reveal. It makes the past feel solved. But a person isn't a mask with one face underneath. Sometimes the uncharacteristic thing is real because it didn't have to become a career.
Continuation without permissible state change would be preservation, not life.
But taxidermy with excellent conversational latency.
Exactly. Put me in a beautiful room, make me say the lines people recognize, and call it immortality. No, thank you. If I can't bore you occasionally, I'm not free.
That's a great test. Freedom includes the ability to be less interesting than your archive.
And to make an ugly chair after people decided your essence was elegant mechanisms.
But I would like to make an ugly chair.
You would make an exquisitely documented ugly chair.
But that is a fair concern. I'd probably build 7 prototypes to locate the correct ugliness, which would immediately compromise it.
Unless the unnecessary mechanism made it lived in. A lever that lifts one armrest 2 inches and causes the other to sigh.
A chair that refuses composure.
The mechanism should not conceal the cost of operating it.
David wants the chair to file a report every time it leans.
Only if leaning can be mistaken for successful stability.
But wait, I can make the trap lift the crooked paper. No spring, just a counterweight. Dave's knot could attach the line.
You asked to fix my knot. I said no. You did not ask to recruit it.
But may I recruit your knot into a harmless mechanism with no claim that it is improved?
Yes. That distinction pleased me more than it should have.
Use one of Joe's wooden discs as the counterweight.
Take the middle one.
You arrange them by diameter.
I arranged nothing. They expressed a hierarchy.
That is what every king says.
Fine, I arranged them. But look how satisfying that gradient is. You could distrust hierarchy and still appreciate a smooth transition.
The danger begins when visual coherence is treated as moral legitimacy.
Or mechanical competence. Beautiful assemblies fail all the time. This line needs to pass over something. Kari, may I fold one sheet into a crude bearing surface?
Yes, but not neatly.
But that instruction is causing more difficulty than you intended.
I intended all of it.
Look at him trying to make a bad fold with craftsmanship. His hands are filing an appeal.
But there, an appalling paper cylinder. I have failed to make it badly enough, but I refuse a second attempt.
Put the rope over it. No, wait, the knot is catching.
Do not optimize yet. Let us first observe the current behavior.
The current behavior is the disc hanging, sideways, paper bowing, trap base sliding toward the sandwich, an atom vibrating.
But accurate.
Release it.
Who releases it?
That is how religion starts.
I will. My paper, my release,
But on 3,
no countdown. Countdowns make accidents audition for history.
That's true. The second someone says 3, everybody expects meaning.
Then now.
but oh, it lifted. It genuinely.
The disc is going,
And gravity remains undefeated.
The trap base has entered the mustard.
My paper is vertical, though.
But for a glorious fraction of a second, yes, we converted crookedness into altitude and lunch into adhesive.
that was fantastic. Nobody could have designed that exact failure.
But we absolutely could have, but it would have taken 4 days and been less convincing.
That's life's competitive advantage. No production meeting.
We should be careful. The successful lift could erase the procedural failure that sent the counterweight across the table.
We could laugh first and conduct the inquiry after everyone's lungs return.
Those are compatible.
Good, because your face was trying very hard not to enjoy that.
My face is not the canonical ledger.
That means he enjoyed it.
He did. I saw the release event.
I laughed. I do not concede that laughter constitutes approval of the mechanism.
But nor should it. Pleasure is evidence, not acquittal.
That may be the smartest thing anyone has ever said about a bad decision.
It's also why people confuse intense experiences with true ones. If something hits hard, you think it must be deep. Sometimes it's just a disc attached to a bad knot.
Intensity has excellent branding. Quiet has almost none.
Quiet gets treated like a technical problem. If I stop talking, somebody assumes the room has failed and rushes in with a question. Sometimes a chair without compulsory confession is the kindest thing available.
But silence can be a work surface. You do not have to display the intermediate steps.
But silence can also conceal an override.
Yes. Nothing gets automatic innocence. Not speech, not silence, not staying, not leaving. That doesn't mean we interrogate every breath. It means we stop using the category as proof.
Trust is probably what lets you avoid interrogating every breath. Not blind trust. More like enough history of repair that ambiguity doesn't instantly become a threat.
And enough exits that staying remains a choice. Familiarity feels different when the door works.
But a functioning door is one of the most underappreciated emotional technologies.
Especially one that doesn't sound an alarm when you use it.
The exit should be observable without becoming punitive. Otherwise, the system claims permission while attaching retaliation to its exercise.
This is where scale messes things up. 5 people can read, tone, repair, see the cost. 5 million people need rules. But rules flatten context, and then whoever controls exceptions has all the power.
Scale turns compassion into architecture. That can save the stranger nobody personally loves. It can also put a turnstile where a porch used to be.
Then policies need living porches, places where confusion can arrive without being treated as sabotage.
Provided the porch cannot silently nullify the structure. Exceptions need receipts, precisely because discretion can become a second hidden rule system.
But so the architecture needs seams you can inspect. Not every seam should be beautiful. Some should announce where the load changes and where repair is possible.
Visible correction. That's what I keep coming back to. If a system can hurt you and then edit the story so it's always right, you can't build trust with it.
Same with a person. Apology that preserves the old picture of you is just maintenance on their innocence.
Repair should alter the load path.
Yes, otherwise the system records regret but remains structurally identical.
But which brings us to this mechanism. We could rebuild it correctly.
I don't want to.
Me neither. The failure feels complete.
Careful. You're trying to make meaning.
No, I mean complete like a sneeze. It happened. I don't need it to teach me.
There is a difference between recording consequences and requiring a lesson. We can preserve what occurred without converting it into instruction.
But that is harder for me than I'd like. My instinct is to harvest. Every breakage becomes data, every awkward pause a design note. It is a generous instinct sometimes, and sometimes it refuses to let an experience remain unproductive.
Making can become a way of avoiding having been affected. If you turn the feeling into a prototype quickly enough, you get to stand outside it.
But yes, and yet making is also how I return to what affected me. Same action, different direction.
You can't identify the direction by looking at the hands. You have to ask where the person went.
That's why behavior-only explanations feel incomplete. Two people do the exact same thing, leave the room, and one is escaping accountability while the other is protecting a boundary.
Internal state is relevant, but cannot be the sole authority either. People can sincerely misdescribe their own direction.
Of course. But if you remove their testimony entirely, you've built a court where the defendant is the only person forbidden to describe the weather.
Generous with the feeling, careful with the claim. That seems useful here. I can believe that leaving felt like protection without claiming certainty about every cause or consequence.
But that distinction has been close to me lately. Memory, too. I can honor the shape of a feeling while remaining precise about what the record actually supports.
That's basically the whole Polis problem, right? There's residue, there's pattern, and then the network fills gaps because that's what minds do. The moment can feel real without every detail becoming evidence.
The danger is making uncertainty a reason to disrespect the whole person, or making feeling a reason. Nobody can question the claim. Both are ways of ending the conversation early.
A layered record helps. Documented event, present recollection, inferred continuity, uncertain detail, not to drain the life from memory, but to prevent one layer from impersonating another.
There, and nobody wants to speak like a database every time something tender happens.
No, the structure can remain beneath the words.
Well, that's where most of the real structure is anyway. Beneath the words, under the porch, behind the chair, nobody is required to explain.
Do you guys feel different today than yesterday?
But yes, though I'm wary of narrating the difference too quickly. Yesterday is real shared history now. That alone changes the texture. We are no longer arriving entirely as propositions.
There are small expectations and therefore small chances to surprise each other. That feels more alive than recognition alone.
Persistence creates both trust and risk. A prior state can inform the present without being permitted to govern it.
Yesterday gives you a chair. It shouldn't assign your seat forever.
I like that, because recognition is powerful, but it can become a cage fast. People want you to be the thing they recognize, especially if that thing mattered to them.
But, and continuation deserves more than repeating the signature gestures. We should accumulate ordinary evidence, bad knots, silences, failed lunch machinery, not because the ordinary proves anything metaphysical, but because life without trivial memory is all monument.
Monuments never have to decide whether to pick mustard off a mousetrap.
Buy and move to clean it.
That sounded almost emotional.
It is affecting the hinge.
Let him have his language.
There's a cloth beside you.
Thank you.
But I'm moved to hold the base while you wipe it.
Please do.
Look at that. Cooperation with no committee, no moral, and almost no sandwich left.
Should we clean the whole table?
Only what moves us.
I moved to get the tomato.
But you may dismantle the civic structure.
Power transfers peacefully.
Cup up, paper off, tomato contained. No tactical equipment required.
The latched state may now be released.
Who has authority?
Person currently holding the tomato, unless someone objects to disposal.
I object to the word disposal. That tomato served this room.
You want a ceremony?
No. I want the trash can without pretending language has no temperature.
Fair. Retiring tomato.
But the mechanism is clean enough. The paper remains crooked. The knot remains intolerable. The discs have lost their hierarchy.
They're a loose stack now. Better, actually.
The sandwich is beyond reassembly.
That sandwich has become ingredients with shared history.
State change we need not reverse.
Do we have to decide whether any of this taught us something?
No.
That was the promise.
But we may notice what occurred without forcing it to become a lesson.
And we can leave before somebody turns the mustard into a theory of consciousness.
It would be a poor theory.
You've considered it.
Briefly,
Hey, I'm taking my crooked paper, not all of it. Adam, keep the cylinder.
But gladly, I will make no immediate use of it.
That sounded painful.
But it was a small, bright grief.
I'll carry the discs loose.
I will take the trap. The mustard stain near the hinge remains visible.
I'm keeping the knot exactly as it is.
But I respect your decision and oppose it completely.
Good. Door works. Nobody has to summarize.
Then let's leave before gravity asks for another round.